My name is NicolePacini. I am the author of the unBITTER Bitch, the Blueprint Journal. I am also a writer. I am an artist. I am a creator. I am an influencer. And I am the founder and creator of the unBITTER Bitch brand and the unBITTER Bitch podcast. Okay, I'm excited. As you can see, it is the first season of the unBITTER Bitch podcast, and I could not be happier, but I'm also a little bit nervous, and I'm also really anxious just to get everybody's feedback. The first season of the unBITTER Bitch podcast is me having a conversation with each of my children. What that will show you is some of who I am, and it will also give you a little bit of light, shed a little bit of light on how I parented my children. The core mission of the unBITTER Bitch podcast is to embolden women through avenues of healing, transparency, accountability, and self-empowerment. Hey, Jazmyne.
Hey, Nicole.
How you doing, Jazzy?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. A little bit nervous with all of these, but I'm doing good. Thank you for being here tonight.
Of course.
Yes. So this is Jazmyne, y'all. This is my firstborn daughter who was actually born on my 19th birthday. So she's my birthday twin. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later. But for now, we're here today because this is the unBITTER Bitch podcast, and we are here to talk about all things motherhood, parenthood, how Jazmyne was raised, or any kind of questions that she has for me. And we're just going to have a candid conversation. We're going to chop it up, we're going to yap a little bit. So you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have one question for you before we get started. What did you think of this podcast when I first told you about it? How did you feel about being on here? What were your first thoughts?
I was a little nervous because I don't really like speaking about myself or personal things. So that was like my only little tidbit. But yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Speaking
how do you feel about it now?
Same way.
Okay.
Same way. Like talking about personal stuff or whatever, It's just never in my bag. So you're the open one. I'm not that open.
But I haven't always been that open, though. It was a process, for sure. Because when I was your age, I was the same exact way. So I had to grow out of it and learn to open up and share a little bit. All right. Well, let's get started. I'm excited to hear. Let's see what we got. We just come on. Let's get right to it. Just jump right in.
Okay. So it was a conversation that me and my client were having yesterday about how when she went away to college, and she was saying how sad she was and how sad her mom was. And I'm like, I don't remember being sad. And I don't think my mama was sad either. Like, how did you feel it when I went away to school and it was just you and the little ones left? Like, because I don't remember you being sad when I went away to school.
No, I wasn't sad at all. I was super excited for you to be going to FAMU, going to a HBCU, and you know what I'm saying, just living out whatever you wanted to live out. And so you originally went to business school, right? Wasn't it business? You going to business college, huh?
Accounting, same.
Yeah. And I don't remember like the details around it, but I took you down there the summer before school started. You had to do some type of program or something. Mm-hmm. And we went down there. But I mean, you just seemed like that was what you wanted to do. You were so comfortable in being there. I wasn't concerned. I wasn't worried, any of that type of stuff. I was just really happy that you made a decision for yourself. So I wasn't sad at all.
Oh, okay.
I was super happy for you.
You didn't miss me when I went away to school?
No, I did miss you, but you came home. Remember, you came home that one year and you surprised everybody. But I'm just saying, you still came back home. It's not like you disappeared, you know.
Yeah.
And you used to call and ask me like to buy you food because you missed the dining hall. He's like, can you order me some Chinese food? I was like, absolutely
that Chinese
not.
food place used to be so good though.
I was like, absolutely not. And I think you got your grandmother or somebody to buy you food or whatever, but all your dinners and breakfast was already paid for.
Yeah.
You're right. So I was like, I ain't got it. But yeah, no, I did not feel sad at all, but I did miss you, of course.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't remember crying or nothing. I'm like, my mom wasn't sad, I wasn't sad, we wasn't sad. But I hear that.
Girl, you got down there, got your stuff that you needed, got your room set up. It was yeah.
Okay.
What else you got?
Okay, so how did you feel raising 6 kids?
How did I feel? Feel?
Like in real time. Like after you had 1, 2, it was like, all right. 4, then you jump to 4, then jump to 6. Like you didn't ever think like, okay, this is too many kids, or like, what was your thought process when you kept having kids?
I know, right? What was my thought process? So first of all, Taurus asked me a question yesterday. You'll have to, when you see his podcast, when you watch his podcast, he asked a similar question. But having a kid in high school was really enough. And it probably could have just stopped right there. But then, a year later, I had you. And then there was 9 years between you and Ryan and Kennedy. So a little bit of time. But that wasn't, I had no intentions of having any more kids at that time. So that was something that just happened out of just reckless behavior, not being smart, not making smart decisions. So we got the twin girls, and that was hard enough with them coming into the picture. But then I did always have this vision of being married and having a child with my husband, whoever that was. And so got married, and then I was like, okay, I want just one more. So that was intentional, like just want one more. But then I happened to be pregnant with Elijah and Isaiah. So, got double time 2 times. But yeah, I listen. But yeah, just not, like it was it took me a long time to really understand what was really going on. And it takes hindsight to really understand that. At the time, it seemed manageable, doable. It didn't seem like such a big deal. Now I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it was a pretty big deal to have such a large family, especially when we were a blended family, because it was 8 of us, 10 total in a house, which is mad wild. Like I can't even.
We were comfortable. We were very comfortable.
Yeah. But when I think about the day-to-day activities, because everybody's in 3 different age brackets, so we got Ryan and Kennedy, Victoria, then we got you, Taurus and Lil Sam. And then we got Elijah and Isaiah. So everybody's in stair steps. But you were in high school by the time Elijah and Isaiah were born. Yeah, you were 15, I think. Mm-hmm. 15 when they were born. And so that was just like the normal. It was just like a new normal, but everybody had different things going on at the time. Sometimes I just, you work in autopilot. You don't even think about it. Think about, you got to do laundry. You got to cook. You got to go to the grocery store. You got to buy clothes for everybody. Then you got all these birthdays. Then you got all these doctor's appointments. You got all these PTA meetings. You got all these different things that people are doing. So in real time, it was just like, okay, autopilot. These are your kids. This is what you got to do. There's really no thought into it. But when I go back and really look at it, like, damn, that was a lot. And then I'm still like a young adult. And during some of these moments, I'm still like a young child, especially when you and Taurus were here, just y'all two. Mm-hmm. So I'm still a young child, still processing it. But if I had to do it all over again, I definitely would not be so reckless, in my choices, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you think you were judged for having kids, like mentors back to back?
Absolutely. Judged, shamed. It was like a lot of embarrassment that came with it. When I was in high school, I went to a Catholic high school, so it was, you're not even supposed to be having sex. So you come to school pregnant, how do you do that? But I got pregnant with Taurus like the summer before I started my senior year of high school. So at some point I was going to start showing, but I ended up just getting kicked out of high school, not for being pregnant, but for my attitude and how I behave. Way too many detentions, way too much yapping back and things like that. So once I got suspended or expelled from school, I ended up going to another school. And that was the thing, like you're gonna be in high school pregnant and people this and people that. And I'm like, I didn't think of it as such a bad thing. But when I actually got to the new high school, it was a lot of girls pregnant in my school.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like a thing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. It was the elders in the community or family that thought it was such shame and embarrassment around it, or your ability to be successful in life is based off of the fact that you had a child in high school. So yeah, it was a lot of shame and embarrassment, judgment, that type of thing.
But
Sure.
you once you got a little older, like you used to still be hanging out. Like you used to be going to the fights and all that type of stuff. Like, so do you feel like you missed out more than the average person, or you feel like you were still able to keep up with your friends and stuff?
No, I definitely did a lot of things. I definitely still did a lot of things. When we moved to Minnesota, I used to bring y'all to Chicago, or Tusi sometimes used to come up here. Remember that? Like she would come up here and watch y'all sometimes.
I don't remember Tusi coming to watch us as like 3, 4, 4, 5.
No, not that young, but a little bit older. Or I would go to Chicago. I would take y'all to Chicago, and then I would leave and go on my trips and stuff from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I definitely was not like the parent that, because I was still young and I was still wanting to, do things and explore life too. But like I said, I still had a lot of reckless behavior just because I was still trying to figure out who I was, find myself. And then by you and Taurus having birthdays right around my birthday, I always like celebrating. It was like, okay, it's my birthday, but it's Jazmyne's birthday. So we got to have a party for Jazmyne. We got to have a party for Taurus. And, I always kind of was like not having birthday parties or celebrating my birthday. But I also did things throughout the year. I still hung out with my friends. I try to make the best of both worlds, but it worked out sometimes and sometimes it did. Like I said, a lot of reckless behavior.
So you think you had a good balance?
I think I had a good balance. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. So do you think?
What you think?
Yeah, I feel like you was kicking it. Like you had I don't think you ever really missed a beat, especially when you had babysitters and stuff. As we got older. Yeah. So yeah, I don't feel like you missed out. But damn, I forgot my question. My next question. But so do you think you'll ever be that type of like grandmother to keep your grandkids for the summer and on the weekends and stuff like that? Because I'm not having kids if I don't have a support system. So I'm gonna need to be able to drop my kids off so I can still hang out.
Oh no, I would definitely be that kind of grandmother. I would love to, hang out with my kids. When?
Yes.
What are you talking about? When? So I like. Okay. No, I mean whenever. That's the thing. It's whenever.
So you would keep your grandkids for the summer?
I will keep the grandkids for the summer. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to it.
Not for the whole summer, but like a
Like
good month.
like a good part of July.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
for sure.
Like the whole July. That's when it's busted.
Yeah, you turn up.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm gonna hold you to it. Yeah, girl.
Yeah. Okay, so why do you think you were so strict on us growing up?
I was strict.
We're raising us growing up. Yeah, you were strict.
How so?
I don't even know if I would say strict. I would just say you were mean. Like you never let us do much. And I feel like it was hard to kind of like build friendships with people because it's like we couldn't do nothing. Like I don't think I had my first real friend until I was like 16.
Oh my goodness. Oh, this came up in a conversation with Ryan. Well, a lot of it was because of how I was raised. We were taught to, like when I was raised, I couldn't just go over anybody's house. You couldn't just go spend a night over anybody's house. And we didn't have people come over and spend a night at our house. So that was one thing. And then it was a thing of, like this privacy, keep your business to yourself, those types of things. And then Cisco, my stepdad, was in the military. And so a lot of that strictness came, I believe, from him, because that was our household was ran like the military. You gotta wash these dishes a certain way. If one fork or spoon or knife wasn't cleaned properly, all the dishes went back into the sink, and you had to wash them all over again.
You used to try to pull that with us too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's really ridiculous when you go back and think about it. But I also, a part of that is there's a good thing to it and there's a bad thing to it. There's like, it teaches you, how to clean, how to properly take care of your home, things like that. So I was a little bit more organized versus most people. And so it did kind of seem a little extreme. Like Tusi used to say I was a drill sergeant. And I was like, dang, I guess I kind of was. But then, it's like you got a bunch of kids in the house. You got to get order in the court. You got to have order and organization. So I think a lot of that just had to do with the way I was raised. We weren't allowed to do a lot of things either. And then, it's a crazy world. So some of it is for your protection too. Like, I don't know those people. You can't just go over anybody's house. I remember when you first asked me, could you go spend a night at Kendra's house? Do you remember that? And I was like, I don't know them people.
I think her mom came over, or you talked to her on the phone for a long time, and y'all just like hit it off.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, I need to meet her mom. I need to figure out, can't just be going over people's house like that. So that was really the reason. It was a combination of how I was raised, combination of safety. Not like I didn't want y'all to do things, because y'all, I think you did do quite a bit, outside of going over people's houses more. Like that. Yeah,
could have did a little more.
Of course.
I used to have to sneak.
Of course. Yeah. So that was why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one of your kids do you see yourself the most in?
I see myself in all of you all, but mostly you.
Really? How so?
Mm-hmm. The way that you grew up and some of your feisty ways, I had those same ways when I was in high school, but never disrespectful. Always keep it real cool. Things like that. I did have a little attitude, which is kind of like the Kennedy side of me, where we kind of are very similar. Just being angry for, you have a reason, but you really don't know what the reason is. So that's me and Kennedy's comparison, how we compare. But just like your zest of life, you know, how you love people, how you care about people, how you're just, you know, a boss chick, you know, a dreamer, do what you want. Don't let people hold you back from things. You know, you a true Aries, just like me. Yes. So I see a lot of that, like your ability to pick up and go to school, just like I had the ability to pick up and move to Minnesota, you know, at a young age. You know, you're just not afraid to do things that you want to do. You know, you march to the beat of your own drum. I march to the beat of my own drum. You know, we have a lot of similarities in that area. You know, like don't take no SHIT, tell it like it is. Those type of traits that I think you and I have the most similarities.
So how did you think I was gonna turn out?
Stubborn, bullheaded.
Yeah.
You said what?
I said yeah, all that.
Yeah. I thought when I didn't have no, like, you know how you have a concern, like Elijah and Isaiah, those may be a little concerning, you know what I mean? But I didn't have those kind of concerns for you. Like whatever you decided to do, like I was really cool with that. When you went away to college and then you decided that you were going to come back, well, not to Minnesota, because you was like, yo, I'm never coming back to Minnesota. But when you decided that you wanted to do hair, like that was what you were doing already. You was already braiding people's hair. You was, remember when you got into trouble at FAM because the girl set you up. Yeah, the girl set you up. But yeah, so you were already doing that. So being able to just make a decision for yourself and pivot, because I'm pretty sure you probably got a lot of slack for that too. Like, you know, you've been in school this long, you need to finish, you know, but you decided to do what you did what you wanted to do, not what everybody else thought you should do. And so I
always felt like you used to be worried. Like, what are you doing type stuff.
No, not a worry. It's never a worry. It's just more of a like concern, just like a concern, because you're my child, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's that kind of concern, but like not worry. When I was worried is when you moved to Chicago, and it was like,
Everybody was worried.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. I was like, oh Lord, because there was a lot going on in Chicago at that time when you got there. And every time you turn around, it was like, you was like, Mom, this happened. And I'm like, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. It was a lot. So that may have been a little worried then, but nah. Nope.
Interesting. Okay.
Lord.
So how did you forgot my train of thought. Dang, what was I gonna say?
You didn't write your questions down.
I did, but it was like tied into what we were just talking.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna ask you about moving away from your support system so young. Like you moving away from everybody who could have helped you when me and Taurus were babies, kids, to Minnesota, to a city that you really didn't know nothing about. So what was like, why? But now I know you had the support because you would always bring us back. So it's kind of like, did you know that though? Or did you just impulsively like leave?
No, I didn't know anything. Listen, I had no plan. I had no place to stay. We lived with Jazmyne and Anita. Do you remember that?
Mm-mm.
So when we first moved, when we came up here, Jazmyne and Anita were living with us on South Shore Drive for a little bit of time with Vidal and Veronica. They were living with us, and so they decided they were gonna move to Minnesota because Jazmyne's uncle lived here. So they moved up here, and then they're like, you should come to Minnesota. So much opportunity here, blah, 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 skippy, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. So I told everybody we were leaving. You and Taurus cut up when we left. Y'all cut up when we left Chicago. And once we got here, you don't?
I do remember that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, y'all cut up. So when we got here to Minnesota, to Minneapolis, Marlon and Anita were staying right around the corner from us. You remember that when we lived on Blaisdell?
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. But they were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. So Marlon and Anita, and
apartment.
Yes, and they're in Videla, Veronica, and then me, you, Taurus, and Jazmyne. I mean, me, you, Taurus, and Jazmyne. Lord have mercy. I keep telling everybody, I get everybody's names mixed up. But me, you, and Taurus lived with them in their 1-bedroom apartment for about less than a month. So every day I would get up, go look for apartments, and I saw a sign at the 2200 Blaisdell building that said for rent. And I went in there, applied, got the apartment. I don't even know how I even got the apartment. It was $580. I didn't even have no income. I think I had public assistance that was, I don't know, like $432 or something like that. Don't ask me. I don't know. I can't remember the amount. But yeah, so when I got here, I remember Tusi just telling me, you could always come back, if you ever, want to come back home, just come back. And I was thinking like, nah, I ain't never coming back. I'm going to make it happen. Now I'm determined to make it happen. Because that's the last thing I want to do. That's that stubbornness. That's the last thing I want to do is pack back up and move back to Chicago and be like, oh, it didn't work. So whatever I had to do to make it work, I was going to figure it out and make it work. I never thought about moving back to Chicago under no circumstance, even when things were a little crazy. I was like, nope, we're going to figure it out.
So are there things? Yes.
Okay.
So are there things that happen growing as like us growing up, your kids growing up, that you don't think we understood back then, but we can understand now?
There's a lot of things. One of the things was there's a lot of things. One of the things and I don't even know if we ever even really talked about this, but when our apartment got raided on Blaisdell, that was pretty traumatic. That was pretty traumatic. And at that point, that would have been a good time to go back to Chicago. And we actually did go to Chicago for a little bit. Do you remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, we did go back for a little bit. And then because I was never going back to that apartment. I was like, I will never sleep another night in that apartment. And so, for those listening, in 1997, my apartment got raided by the Minneapolis Police Department, but they were looking for the neighbor and came to the door, knocked on the door, told me to open the MFing door right now. And it was just a day. We were just in the house, just kind of chilling. I had on a t-shirt. I didn't even have on any bottoms or anything. And I opened the door, slammed me to the ground, handcuffed me, interrogated.
They had a towel over your
head. Yeah, and it was just really, a horrific experience. And I remember hearing them questioning you all about where is so-and-so? Yeah, they're like, where is so-and-so? And I was yelling like, shit, don't talk to them. Be quiet. Like, stop talking to my kids. And, it was just, that was really crazy. And so that really kind of wore me out mentally. And I was just like, man, I never want to be here ever again. And so we went to Chicago for a little bit until we got approved for another apartment. And then that's when we moved over there on Portland. And so there was just, there was just a lot of things that I was going through as a young adult. And even like in my 20s, it was just me still trying to figure out who I was as a person. So not as like a mother, but like as a person, like who is Nicole? What does Nicole want to do with her life outside of raising kids, outside of that? Like who are you? What are you going to do with your life? So I'm in school. I was in school for a long time. Like I went to the University of Minnesota. I was in Metro State. I stayed in school. But one reason I also stayed in school.
Metro State.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm at Angie at the U of M.
Oh, okay.
I'm at Angie at the U of M. But I stayed in school. I originally wanted to get my degree in civil engineering because I was always really good at math and science. But then that became overwhelming. Going to the University of Minnesota, being in those lecture rooms with hundreds of people and not getting the support that you need. Like I was mind blown. Like I was like, I don't understand what's going on. So then I was like, well, I'll change my major to accounting because again, I like numbers, I like math. So that was something I changed my major to when I went to Metro State. So I was in school for like, you're talking about $60,000 in student loan debt that has been erased thanks to Biden administration. Thank you. But yeah, I had no idea, no intentions on paying any of that back, as it is what it is. But so stayed in school. But one of the reasons I stayed in school is because I always was pushed to start to be in some type of career or field. It's like you graduate from high school, you got to go to college, you got to get your degree. That was what you were told to do. Even when I graduated from high school, I went to Chicago State University. I used to take tours to school with me when he was a baby because I didn't have a babysitter. I used to go to night school. When you were probably about 2 years old, I used to drop y'all off at daycare, and I was going to school downtown, this little fake school for like aviation training to do like air traffic control. It was a fake, it was a scam. And I remember I went down there one day and it was closed. It was a sign on the door like, we are closed. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So, I always felt like I needed to be in school. I needed to be doing something because I have children and I have to support all of us, but the struggle was real. Financial aid, you tap out on financial aid. And then, what's left? Student loans. So that's how I ended up getting into student loan debt, because I was using my student loans to take care of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and go to school and get my books and all that. By the time I was paid for tuition and books, I had nothing left over. So I'm working, going to school, doing all of those things. So that was tough, and still trying to kick it, have fun, do those type of things. I remember, we used to have a lot of parties and stuff at the house because that was just the thing to do. You remember Angelique and them used to come over, and Rebecca and her kids, and we would go over to their house, and that was just the thing that we would do. We still went out, but for the most part, we were at home, with our kids, having a ball, and then the kids would be over there doing their thing. And so that was pretty challenging for me. And the biggest thing is just like the knowing of self. And I can really testify to that when I go back and read some of my journals, some of the things that I used to write about, or some of the things that I was really sad about, or some of the things that, like looking back, is crazy. None of that stuff made any sense, but it was my life, and that's what I was experiencing. But yeah, it was definitely some challenging times for sure. And then even like with your, the stuff I was going through with your dad and all of that, it's just a hot mess. But I always tried to protect y'all from everything that I was going through. I did try my best. I mean, I know y'all saw some things, experienced some things that were, maybe didn't shed a good light on me, but my intention was always to make sure y'all was taken care of.
Yeah, we were taken care of. I could say that when people ask about like how I grew up, when I'm like, I had a good upbringing. Like I never went without. We were spoiled from every which way. So, but I can say that's one thing where we're not spoiled with. Love. So how, like, why do you think you struggle so hard to like show love?
Man, I forgot my tissue upstairs. But again, it was one of those things where I don't know if I don't think I experienced that growing up. If I did, I don't recall. I don't know what that was like. I don't know what that's like. It's not an excuse. But once you start building that wall, it's hard to break it down. It's hard to break through it. And even now, I still struggle with that. So like emotions, being emotional or having like an emotional connection to a person is a struggle. And my idea of, taking care of my kids was making sure y'all was good, didn't want for nothing. Not thinking there's not a, emotional thing. Like my love was, I'm going to take care of you. Not like I'm going to be emotionally connected with you. I just didn't know what that was like or what that felt like. Yeah.
Do you think that shows up in like love relationships?
Absolutely. For sure.
Does that affect you to this day?
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah.
So
it shows up.
What do you do to undo
you got undo it? It's a process, so the first step is just acknowledging that exists. Because it could be, I could say, no, I'm not like that, or just deny the whole situation. But the first step is to acknowledge that it actually exists. And so once I acknowledge that it actually exists, then I have to step back into, well, why does it exist? And then that goes back to like childhood. And some of those things I just don't remember. Like I have like Isaiah has a really great memory of his childhood. But like I don't. Like those formative years, I have no recollection of any of that. I started remembering things probably around, like I remember bits and pieces of things. Bits and pieces of things, especially living on Avalon. I remember bits and pieces of things. But yeah, for some reason, it's like I want to say I was, an only child for a long time. CJ came 8 years later. And, I remember having to, babysit him at an early age. And so I thought nothing was wrong with, my kids babysitting their siblings, at a younger age. I was literally 8, 9 years old babysitting. And so I didn't see, anything wrong with that. But sometimes it's hard to share like the full story because there's a lot of other people that are involved that may not be ready to share their version of the story. You know what I'm saying? And so I try to be respectful of that. But I just know that in my relationships, just in general with people, there can be, because I'm like I'm like the logical person. Like I think with my brain, not necessarily with my heart, like with the emotions. I think on the logical side, like that's how I am. But I do have emotions and I do get emotional. Like this is emotional for me right now. But I'm working on it. I'm definitely working on it. I don't know how long it will take. It's just it's just a process. It's just a process.
Well, I can say I got that honest because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
You literally twin. They say Ryan twin.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I know. Yeah.
So do you feel like you also struggle with like hyper independence, like wanting to do everything by yourself and not asking for help, or were you one of the people who would ask for help?
No, I think me and Taurus talked about that too. Like that It's so much. Okay, so remember when I started watching Iyanla all the time, and y'all used to always mess with me, telling me, okay, Iyanla, all right, Iyanla, like I'm just coming through with all the empowerment, and I learned so much from watching her. But one of the things that I always knew about myself was that I don't care. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm not gonna ask for help. I'm not going to ask for help because I don't want to hear your mouth. I don't want to hear that I did this for someone, you know what I'm saying? I did this for her. And I don't want to hear that. I figured out and I do it for myself. So I was always going to just make everything shake. I didn't have no problem making things shake. If I had to figure it out on my own, I was just going to, I just did not want nobody. And it only takes one person to treat you that way for you to have this perspective all around.
Yeah.
It only takes one person to be that way to you. And I don't know who that one person was. I can't pinpoint it. But somewhere down the line, that's what happened. And I was like, all right, I ain't asking for nothing. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do what I have to do. And that's that. And I'm still like that right now. However, I have opened up a little bit, and I realized that, when you do let go of some of that, you will find people that really, truly do want to support you and will do it with, and people will truly support you, and they'll do it with no strings attached. I know for a fact, because I've seen it happen by me just letting down, peeling back some of those layers and just letting go of some of that nonsense. It's like I built up this wall for no reason because of something that one person did or how one person responded to me. And then I built up this wall. But in order to break all that down, I have to be open and vulnerable and accepting. But I also have to be not afraid to be let down.
Heavy on that.
Yeah. Because once that happens, it's like a whole trigger. It's just like okay, all right, I'm gonna put my armor back on. I'm gonna put this shield back on. So you're not gonna be able to impact me anymore. And I'm gonna go back to figuring everything out for myself. But that's just not, community, being able to feel supported by people it feels good. And so if you let that wall down, you'll understand that it does feel good, and then you'll find your tribe of people who will support you no matter what. So that's just my process over the years has just been super guarded. But once I started letting my guard down a little bit more, then I started to realize the people in my life that really mean, good for me. So it definitely was a process. All of this is a process. I'm still learning myself and growing into my mature self. So, yeah, great question.
Okay. So, my last question is, what are you most proud of when it comes to your kids, or just like as a whole? Like, what do you find the most joy in with being a mom?
Wow. When I look at just the journey that we've all went through to get to today, I'm proud that you guys have given me a second chance. This is why I needed my tissue. No. I'm proud of that because, okay, I gotta get a tissue. Oh, please. I've had my tissue out this whole time, except for today. But no, I'm really proud that you all have, been patient with me and, supporting me through, all my shenanigans. And I mean, not that it was horrible, but, I know I wasn't the best person sometimes, a little bit mean, like you said. But I was also going through a lot of stuff myself. And so just acting out was a real thing for me. But I'm really proud of all of you all because I see myself, a little bit of myself in all of you. I see the stubbornness in all of you, but then I also see the beauty and the love in all of you. I love the fact that you have taken this role of the big sister that you have. That really, I mean, that the way that you hold your family down and your siblings makes me really proud. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, you did a lot of stuff right, but the siblings is like, I feel like that should be something you should be proud of, how tight we are. Like before, literally, I had to hang up on the phone with them before we get on the call. Like we're so close. And you look at some families, so it's like they always into it with their siblings, and I just can't imagine. Like I do be into it with, but it's like I can never imagine like not being close with my siblings. Like those my dogs. Like so yeah, exactly. I feel like you should be proud of that because you raised us to be close and to look out for each other, and we just respect each other. We love each other. So that's something you should be proud of.
Absolutely. And I pretty much, I remember, I used to tell Ryan and Kennedy all the time because, and it's, you go through things in life and you don't want to share those things with your parents. And so, I used to always tell them, you got Jazmyne and you got Taurus. So if you ever are going through anything, make sure you talk to them.
Nothing.
Huh?
I said, because we couldn't talk to you about nothing.
Right, exactly. And so, and I understood that, so I intentionally would do that because it was a way for them to feel, protected and safe and heard without, because I'm going to go in straight parent mode. I'm going to be in parent mode. I'm going to be like, that's crazy. You're not going to do that. But yeah, and so it has genuinely led to, you having this, big sister role, almost a second mother role, to your siblings. And I really value that and appreciate that. And you like you said, you guys love each other, you support each other. And, yeah, we have our rifts and, little spats and things like that, but it's nothing that lasts too long. We just back to square one again. But I just appreciate the fact that we can have these conversations. When I realized some of the things that I've done, over the years, I was able to say, I apologize. So, that was good, and y'all accepted my apology. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you did a good job with us, regardless of all the other stuff. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to give grace. As I talk to people about, how they grew up with their parents, and it's just like, when I was 30, like I didn't have no kids. Like you had 4, and you were literally so young. Like you started so young, and literally learning with us. We grew up with you. So it's like you literally were just doing what you could with what you had. And so it's like, you got to give grace. So
yeah, thank you. But yeah, my goal was to always be like, I felt because I supported y'all in other ways that I was just doing, such a great job, like making sure y'all had everything you needed, make sure I was involved in school, make sure I took y'all places, we did things together. I exposed y'all to a lot of different things in life. So I never felt like I neglected y'all because I was, that type of mother. But emotionally, definitely there was some, neglect there. And if I could do it all over again, I would definitely spend more time getting to know myself before, bringing children into the world, because it's not like, it's a difference between having a baby and being a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Difference between just having a child and being a parent. There's just no way around that. And once you grow up and have your own children, you'll be able to parent them differently, because you know better. You're so much mature, in your 30s than you are in your teens. And some people have it and some people just don't. I didn't have it. Like you said, I did the best that I could with what I knew, with the emotional intelligence that I had at the time, which wasn't very much. But one thing, I was always smart, and I was always eager to learn, and I was always growing and evolving every step of the way. I never slid backwards. Yeah, I might have had a bunch of kids. But I never, like I said earlier, I never looked at it like, oh, I have a bunch of kids. It was everybody else. It was like, oh, you got a bunch of kids. Even till today, it's like, oh my God, you got 6 kids? Like, yeah, it's like normal.
Wow. It's a little wild.
You said what?
Yeah, those are all my questions. I said that was a little wild having all them kids, but do you, sus?
I know. Okay, I'm done crying now. Yeah. Well, that was good. How you feel about? How you feel?
I feel fine. I mean, yeah, it's a good combo.
So how do you feel about being born on my birthday?
It don't make me no difference. I'm gonna do me regardless. Have me a birthday regardless. I don't know. It's cool, and I like that we could celebrate together. Like when you came to Chicago and we did like that whole day of stuff and found out Moselle was born. That was such a good birthday.
Crazy. Yes.
And then we like to do the same stuff. So it's like we could always, do a little quick 1-2 on the birthday. And now that I'm older, we could really like do stuff together. But growing up, it's my birthday. Like
I know it's your birthday. Exactly. So the podcast is going to launch on our birthday on April 7th. I should probably I should let you go first.
Probably.
So it'll be a happy birthday to Jazmyne. Happy 35th birthday to Jazmyne.
Right.
That's crazy. That's super crazy. Do you have plans? Have you finalized plans yet?
Once my passport, hopefully it comes back in time. I just went today to apply because my dog tore up my passport. So if it comes back in time, I'm gonna go to Mexico City April 6th and stay for like a week. A solo trip. I'm gonna go hiking. I'm gonna do a cooking class. I'm gonna do a taco tour. I'm gonna do a hot air balloon. I'm gonna do a spa day. Michelin star restaurants, museums. I can't wait.
That sounds so dope. Yes. And we do love the same things. See myself right there. Yes. And that whole, like, being able to feel confident enough to travel by yourself, do things on your own terms, march to the beat of your own drum. That's what I'm talking about.
That's because I'm hyper independent.
I man, listen.
Not a good thing, but
it's something that you eventually will have to start peeling back, those layers too. But in the meantime, between time,
Oh no, I know. I don't be. One thing about me. I'm very self-aware, but my issue is like expressing or correcting it because it's probably my pride and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I'm very aware, but I don't like to implement what I know. So yeah,
you get there. You'll get there. Well, thank you so much for participating. Is there anything you have to, like a final thought or a final word you want to share?
Well, I kind of said my final word.
Okay.
I just feel like we got to give our parents grace. We got to accept our parents for who they are, no matter what. They did what they could. And I mean, we turned out fine. So that was my final little, take it easy on their oldest daughters. For the people who have elder daughters, don't put so much responsibility on them. Let them be children. Let them grow up like the other kids.
Yeah, for sure. Amen. All right, Jazmyne, thank you again. I love you. Appreciate you.
Love you too.
This is what Ryan said we were supposed to do. So I don't know. What is this?
This is me and me twin, and we vibing. Classic. Hey. It's just a little, just a little something. Right. But yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll see each other when we do the family Brady Bunch. We'll have all the squares up.
Reunion? A reunion?
Yeah, we do a reunion episode. We'll do that after everybody watches all the episodes.
Oh, true. And see what the people saying about us.
Yeah, some of a lot of this is overlapping. You know, we've had some of the things that you've said, somebody else said, and Elijah and Isaiah pretty much took it a little bit easy. They was just like, so is that all y'all got? You know?
Yeah, because they got the easiest version. Like,
it
was a breeze. Like, what? You got all these older siblings, a million older siblings, the youngest kid. What? Like, what we have to say.
Right. That's true. All right. Well, let's end the call. And again, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the unBITTER Bitch podcast. Come back next week and we'll be dropping another episode. Let me know your thoughts, leave a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.